How good is Boomerang Basics? One might ask. Apparently, good enough to get Sarcomancy in the 5-0 decklist dumps. Hello folks, Phil Gallagher aka ThrabenU here for another Legacy video, and I'm going to use a donation decklist from Alan, a dealer's choice donation decklist that is, to play something really spicy I found while reading one of Joe Dyer's articles. Shout out to Joe Dyer for being awesome, compiling all of that stuff for us Legacy players every week. This is kind of a crazy deck list. And the more cards that I need to read in a deck list, the more chili peppers it gets in terms of spice. There are some legacy staples here. We've seen Storm Chasers Challenge paired with Boomerang Basics backed by Days and Force of Will a handful of times on this channel. And then there's a bunch of bizarro draft commons and uncommons that round out this deck list. So this is a 1 mana, make your opponent lose 2 life and have them discard a card that potentially can be used for a Scry 2 later. This doesn't necessarily look all that exciting. Neither does a 2/2 for 1 mana. It doesn't look overly exciting. However, when you get to repeatedly reuse cheap effects via Boomerang Basics, especially if they are also triggering prowess at the same time, those cards are going to get more value than it looks like on the surface. And Momentum Breaker is something that occasionally sees play because you can reuse it with something like a Lurrus. Though this is an edict effect that also potentially could make someone discard a card, and you could gain a little bit of life as well. And there's also kind of a bizarro removal spell that kind of gets around some ward and hexproof type stuff as well. And the end game payoff here is Estrid's Invocation, a card that I would quite frankly describe as bullshit. You can have it enter as a copy of any enchantment you control, except it has at the beginning of your upkeep, you may exile this enchantment. If you do, return it to the battlefield under its owner's control. So all of these somewhat mediocre enchantments that we would play in the early game, you then get an additional copy of it each turn as Estrid's Invocation bounces in and out of play, which is really cool. And you also have some lines where you can do something like Force of Will something, play Chakra Meditation, return the Force of Will back to your hand, and, you can then blank this out of your in and out of play to repeatedly keep that singular Force of Will. The sideboard features mostly things that you would expect from a blue-black legacy deck, minus Grim Bauble. This is another thing that you can potentially just rebuy with Boomerang and Basics. So the deck building here is pretty cool. And the user that 5-0'd was db_twin_MTG. So looks like that was another Daybreak Games account. So with that being said, let's see how this deck performs. This is probably going to be a very fun league one way or another in the STID 5-0, so hopefully we can do respectfully with it as well. Folks, if you want to support this channel, the best way to do so is by doing a donation deck list. All of that info is available on my website. And another way you can support me is by shopping at toamagic.com and using promo code ThrabenU to save a little bit on your order. The folks there are great. They are coordinating a major project for me and honestly my other sponsor, Moxfield, at Magic on Vegas. So stay tuned for more info on that soon. All right, let's battle. First round opening hand, I don't think we keep on the strength of Thoughtseize alone. Like, we have basic Swamp, Thoughtseize, Force of Will, and then I have 3 cards rotting in my hand that I can't do anything with. I think I will just mulligan here. Alright, this is a weird one. It is relatively disruptive. I think I will keep it. The Force of Will that doesn't have anything to pair with it is going to go back with this hand, unquestionably. The only question is, do I play Thoughtseize on turn 1? Like, do I need to get my zombies going immediately? Or is it more important to Thoughtseize on 1, Thoughtseize Sarcomancy on turn 2? The Wasteland also kind of further complicates things. Force of Will goes back. I think given that I have no end game here, I play Sarcomancy on 1. and then either go for double Thoughtseize or Wasteland Thoughtseize, backing up my early threat. I like legitimately don't believe that I am playing Sarcomancy in the year of our Keranos 2026. Bloodstained Mire, now deciding what to do. Passing turn. Oh, there's our endgame, baby. Big fan of that. I will now Thoughtseize before making my land drop and leave myself the flexibility to do both of these. I do not care if Thoughtseize gets dazed. In that instance, Thoughtseize just takes daze. Hoo-hoo, buddy! Opponent did not go for it on turn 1. So turn 1, you can definitely echo on turn 1 there. But I guess I showed Underground Sea, and they weren't willing to do that. I will be taking LED and Gamble here. I'll get another Underground Sea. Dismiss this immediately. Yeah. I think Underground Sea very quietly did some heavy lifting there in bluffing out our opponent that we might have more interaction. So here's the thing, though. I am at 14 already from self-damage from my own cards. There is a Tendrils of Agony in my opponent's hand. That is a card to surveil. Scalding Tarn hits play. I probably need to incredibly aggressively deny mana here. Opponent is already at 5 of 6 for Runehorn Hellkite. Assuming they can imprint the Tendrils, which I'm not 100% sure if they can. I suspect they can. Oh, we're going a gamble. Discarding Chrome Mox, which is assuredly not the thing that they were gambling for. This is the 6. They still get to Runehorn Hellkite. Woo! I did not get into a Force of Will there. Opponent has passed the turn. So I could return a Thoughtseize to my hand. That doesn't help me immediately. I can make my opponent discard a card, which may or may not be positive. They get to pick. I think I am brainstorming here. All right, Daze and Wasteland are things. Gonna bury Momentum Breaker. Whatever I put on top, I will be redrawing. Yes, that's this. I will play a Hopeless Nightmare to make my opponent discard a card. Again, since this is not a card of my choice, this is just discarding a card. This is very awkward if there's an Echo of Eons over there. All right, it is Gaia's Will. That is fine. I can sack this to Scry 2. I don't need to do that. Opponent goes to 12. I'm going to hit the plateau here. I don't want a Hexing Squelcher or Silence to come down. My disruption here is very, very minimal, but I would not like my disruption to be 0. Yes. All right, opponent passes the turn after that. So I can swing in for 2 more, and then I will play one of these 3-mana enchantments. Underground Sea. I think I'm just going to make my opponent discard a card again. This also burns for 2, which is worth something. And then maybe I can Daze, Chakra Meditation, the Daze, or a Thoughtseize back. All right, a Burning Wish goes away. That is a Legend Rolled Mox Opal. You've got it. That is a Legend Rolled Mox Opal. You've got it. That is a Dark Ritual. I'm going to Daze here while the Daze is still live. Mox Opal is not live right now. We will just not take any chances here. So now I will use this ability, copy Hopeless Nightmare, make my opponent discard again, getting rid of a Silence. Cool. Taking my opponent off of Plateau was notable. Now I have the choice of play Chakra Meditation, get guaranteed Daze back, or Brainstorm and potentially do better than that. I think I'm going to take guaranteed Daze. Let us meditate. Daze. Pass turn. And then if I Daze, I get to draw a card. Hot damn. Eat your heart out, Bryant Cook. GG's. I think we die if our opponent goes for it on turn 1, the vast majority of the time. Right? Like, they saw our Underground Sea, thought it was likely that we could interact, and then decided to wait a little while. I think if they YOLO gamble after playing out LED and just go for the draw 7, I'm in really bad shape. I'm having fun, though. This deck rules. All right. Some Graveyard Hate in. Additional Counterspell in. Some Graveyard Hate in. Additional Counterspell in. I don't think I want these. I'll think about them. I don't think I want them. I do probably need some number of things that interact with Hexing Squelchers specifically. That might just be Momentum Breaker because it's a discard if it's not relevant. I think I don't care about the ward on that creature triggering. I think Nowhere to Run is out. It's very, very strange for discarding a card to have such negative downside with Echo of Aeons specifically. I don't know how much there is to be done there about that, but, like, it's a thing. I feel like I cut a couple of things around the edges, and it feels a little tough to get all of this in. Maybe I can cut one Estrid's Invocation. Maybe I cut all of the Estrid's Invocations for being slow, and I keep the Boomerang basics that have more immediate value. I could see that being fine. This is an okay opening hand. I won't go any further than okay here, but I don't think this is a mulligan. I've got a pitch counterspell, a castable counterspell, and a piece of Graveyard Hate. A couple of Brainstorms that I can play at my opponent's end step if I don't end up needing to use mana. That is fine. Hexing Squelcher just makes the world very weird. One has their own Boomerang basics, sure. Like, there are games of Magic that I lose because I don't, like, attack that with a Force of Negation, and my opponent just plays Hexing Squelcher on turn 1 and then goes. I might Boomerang basics that Chrome Mox. I have not seen a land drop yet from my opponent, and they are now in the tank. No land drop? Yeah, I will Boomerang basics the shit out of that land. And then, well, okay. Air quotes land, that Chrome Mox. Get out of play, please. And I can have this float here. This is not great versus Echo of Eons because I won't end up getting the priority pass to remove it. But this is insurance versus something like Beseech the Mirror and the Gaia's Will lines. And we did see Gaia's Will from my opponent in game 1. And this was a Brainstorm with no shuffle, so my opponent's got what they've got for the next couple of turns. I could even consider Force of Negation on the Chrome Mox as it comes back down. I think that's a bit much. Sarcomancy. I think I'm going to Brainstorm and hope that I hit a fetch land. Okay. Not so much. The colored sources are simply not there. So that is the second card from my opponent's Brainstorm. So beginning next turn, they are drawing live again. Incredibly awkward that I would like to play Sarcomancy while doing consign stuff. That is what it is. I do think I have to play this. Get in there. Now that my opponent has 8 cards in hand, they almost certainly want to play some piece of artifact mana out. Oh, I may be wrong. Might just be discarding the hand size. Yeah, they are discarding the hand size rather than just play out something. That is an Echo to Yard, which I can take out via Tormod's Crypt. So, how do we feel about playing the other Sarcomancy? I think I do play it out. I have the same number of counterspells up either way. And shortening the clock is a big deal here since my opponent's silence effects are going to be so strong. An Underground Sea comes down, and opponent Brainstorms. I think I let that go. This is not a Brainstorm that is going to shuffle immediately, so I think I am good with it. And then I can end up wastelanding this Underground Sea, probably on my own turn after I draw. All right, excellent. Oops, all wastelands. I'm good with it. Goodbye, Underground Sea. In for 4 points. Opponent to 14. This is a redraw of the first card from Brainstorm. Binning the Chrome Mox that we knew about from the beginning of the game. This is a slow game versus Storm, by the way. It begins. I think I'm just willing to say no. Like, I get to wasteland this land. Alright. I will allow you to have the second one, then. Okay, that's not the color I expected to go under that. Just confirming that my opponent has made a land drop. My opponent has made a land drop, so I don't have to worry about nuking Echo yet. this is the point where my opponent would have 3 mana for Echo. So now I will Tormod's Crypt them. Mox Opal can resolve. I now don't want to see Galvanic Relay. Hexing's Squelcher. Okay, that is in play. My opponent has 1 card left, though. I think I am probably doing fine. I can brainstorm and try to find some things that aren't counter spells. Most of those are unfortunately counter spells. Consign still has text. The spells can't be countered. I can still go after triggers. Probably put back Daze and a Force of Negation. Go for Punchies. Opponent to 10. I will keep attacking mana here and go ahead and pass. Hexing Squelcher comes in. I don't get to punish that with a flash creature or anything here. End of turn. I will get an Underground Sea and just brainstorm immediately just to use my mana efficiently. Thoughtseize is fine. These are not the cards that I am looking for at this stage of the game, though, unfortunately. I will go to Punchies. Send in for 4. Opponent to 6. We'll see if we can disrupt anything for the future. Well, we're going to leave the Echo in hand, believe it or not. I will take Beseech the Mirror. That's very good. That Beseech the Mirror was very close to dumping in an enchantment that would just turn all of my opponent's bad draws into very, very good active cards. I will take 2 more from the Hexing Squelcher. It is another Hexing Squelcher. Absolutely. So, sad beatdown game continues. We are going to trade here. Opponent goes to 4. Ooh, now opponent is thinking about whether or not they're attacking with it anymore. They are not. I mean, the trade would be awesome for me. Yeah. Okay, we're going to call that 2 missed points of damage if they didn't attack then. I think my opponent blocking there and seeing if they can kill me with my 2 copies of Sarcomancy is like totally a solid plan. There is a Chrome Mox. I have countered that trigger in case the last card is Beseech. Ooh, it is Song of Creation. Sure. Yeah, I think I was correct to counter that trigger. My opponent discards their hand, but they have no cards. So if I attack in, my counter spells turn back on. A little awkward. I maybe don't attack in here. That way, an out to Hexing Squelcher results in a direct kill. That is a land. Dodged the bullet for the first turn. Opponent discards their hand. That is a Force of Will. Maybe with this much counter magic and my opponent getting a Surveil, I now turn a card sideways. Deck is a little light on finishing out the game. I can find something like an Estrid's or a Boomerang Basics and be okay here. This is my opponent going to 1. Did not board out Sarcomancy. All right, they keep a card on top. We'll still Wasteland you. So there is a Brainstorm. I will just go ahead and consign that trigger and just counter the Brainstorm and hope to find anything relevant. I will start bleeding out to my copies of Sarcomancy. I don't have a Surveil land in this deck. All right, cool. This kills my opponent next turn. So if they draw a land, I win. They draw a spell. Game on. Land. We win. Sarcomancy, baby. Opponent says, well, what do I have to say? GG. Yeah. It's possible I could have lost that game for not using Consign to Memory on this Chrome Mox trigger. I didn't think about Song of Creation from hand, but if Beseech and Song are live, that's 3 Beseeches and Song of Creation that potentially come from hand that I stop by consigning there. And I think that's a better line than what I took. GG.
Today's video is sponsored by moxfield.com. If you're looking to store your decks online, you're not going to find a better website. It's super organized and easy to use, and I sort everything that I do into a ton of format-specific folders, and you can customize the way that you use Moxfield to your liking. Whether you like text views or visual views of multiple different natures, Moxfield has it all. And it's so easy to use, you might even say that it's a snap.
So with my opponent mulliganing this aggressively, I'm going to Thoughtseize on turn 1 rather than play out Storm Chaser's Talent on turn 1. What you got over there? I am probably taking a Tamiyo. I could consider not taking the Tamiyo since I do just have an answer to it in hand. But Tamiyo is the only card that I care about in this hand. I think accordingly, I will just, like, not risk my opponent playing Ponder on turn 1 over Tamiyo, and then setting up Tamiyo with Spell Pierce. Let's just not let my opponent have the thing that gets them back into the game, and then hopefully I just bury them with Estrid's Invocation. Not even pondering this turn. I will play Storm Chaser's Talent. You can pierce that. You can pierce that all day. Yep. I am not expecting this game to go quickly. And, like, Prismatic Ending was also an answering to this same stuff. Alright, that did not get a Tundra, that got a basic island. So now my opponent ponders. I would like any value-oriented permanent here. Did not get it. Notably, Estrid's Invocation itself doesn't have the ability. I think I can't just resolve Estrid's Invocation here and have it bounce. I should look this up. Yes, I am correct. So we will just chill here, which is slightly awkward. That can represent another basic land, and I don't have a Surveil land in this mana base, which has honestly been pretty annoying here. I'm giving my opponent time to draw out of their double mulligan, and their pile of basic lands is lining up well versus my whole Wasteland Daze thing that I've got going on here. Brainstorm is fine. I'd like my opponent to play up Tamiyo so that I can flash this in, and then play out an Estrid's Invocation with the intention to bounce it a bunch. I don't know that I need to Wasteland that Tundra immediately or anything. I'll take my draw, decide whether or not that's still a thing that I want to do. I can potentially do that in my opponent's upkeep. It is unclear to me how relevant this is. And there's also timelines where my opponent has the card Stifle in their deck. Brainstorm is fine. I'm going to just cross out that Prismatic Ending. They may or may not have it at this stage. Alright, they have Brainstorm locked themselves. I do not have anything going on myself, though. I think it was fine to offer up Storm Chaser's Talent for Spell Pierce early on. Like, I don't think I'm expecting to end up with triple Estrid's Invocation on average, and double Nowhere to Run with no creatures on the other side of the battlefield. But this is certainly the timeline that I am living in. Alright, just lots of good, honest draw go. I would love to Brainstorm. Okay. I will put back a Nowhere to Run and probably 1 Daze, and then I will actually play a spell. I'm gonna get basic lands on the off chance that my opponent has game 1 back to basics. Get Island. Here is a Chakra Meditation. Spell Pierce is fine. I don't think I fight over that card. Like, I need to be prepared for, like, the crazy... Yeah, there we go. The crazy things that could be coming. Cool. Yeah. Here we go. Please discard a card and lose 2 life. Goodbye to Prismatic Ending. And now I play Estrid's Invocation. Copy it. Make my opponent discard another card. Flame of Honor. So no red mana available to my opponent since they very aggressively went for basic lands this game, which is understandable. Thunder Trap Trainer. Yeah, that can resolve. I can know where to run that creature, and the Estrid's Invocation is giving me good value. Yeah, that's fine. Alright, it is turn 9, and we both have finally decided that it is time to play Magic the Gathering. So Estrid's Invocation does its thing, copying the Hopeless Nightmare again, making my opponent discard a card. This, like, clocks surprisingly quickly. Ooh, Boomerang Basics as well. So first off, there's Nowhere to Run. Get out of there. Then I will Boomerang Basics my Hopeless Nightmare. Draw. Then play Hopeless Nightmare again. And make my opponent discard another card. This is kind of fucked up. I'm enjoying this a lot. This deck is sweet. Kudos to the deck designer here. Basic Mountain. Brainstorm is fine. Ponder is fine. It's just like so hard for my opponent to answer the Estrid's Invocation while doing something else, like having the backup that is necessary for it. Oh, Wrath of the Skies. That is exactly the card you need. However, I have the counter magic. All right, what was that? How many turns was that game? Turn 10. And we really started playing around turn 9. The Hopeless Nightmare thing was surprisingly good there. GG, very, very strange game. I've forgotten what this card does. Okay, got it. So I like my Nowhere to Runs and Momentum Breakers, I think. I don't think I mind just playing some more creatures. My opponent might be going down on Swords to Plowshares type cards and up on Wrath of the Skies type stuff. And just having some things that are a little more expensive might mean that some of my stuff survives a little longer. I think I am not the biggest fan of Days here. Like, when we are going to legitimate 10-turn draw-go games, I don't think that's the direction that I want to be going here. By similar logic, is Thoughtseize sus? Or is Thoughtseize good enough to just punch the hole in the early game for my Stormchaser's talents and Sarcomancies, or punch the hole and make sure I can resolve Estrid's Invocation that buries my opponent? I think I've answered my own question. All right, we're both keeping on 7. I've got Stormchaser's talent. I will probably play it on turn 1 if my opponent taps out on turn 1. If they hold up a Spell Pierce, I probably don't want to lose the Stormchaser's talent immediately. This is a long enough game that it is realistic for me to activate both the level 2 and level 3 abilities. Again, my opponent conceded on turn 10. The game wasn't actually over then. Slightly awkwardly, if I go for the basic island and play Stormchaser's talent, I can't play both Thoughtseize and Hopeless Nightmare immediately. I think accordingly I am not grabbing basic island here, and I am just playing Stormchaser's talent. Immediate Force of Will. I respect that play a lot. Valk and pass. Sure. So, it's a little weird here. Multiple Flame of Honor. You've got it. I will take one of them. Then, I will drop a Hopeless Nightmare, which I'm assuming has my opponent discarding the Pyroblast. And I am correct. And I'll now have to think about whether or not I'm going to do a Force of Will on a Flame of Honor. Everything's weird. I can just try to take my value here. There's Spell Pierce to think about as the one remaining card that could be in my opponent's hand. I'm going to do this. If the Spell Pierce is my opponent's last card, then I would take the Flame of Honor with Boomerang Basics on Hopeless Nightmare anyway. I think I'm just going to let that resolve. And then let Thoughtseize do its thing. Oh, shit. Okay, those are good cards. I take Tamiyo. I know about Wrath of the Skies and Spell Pierce, but I can potentially fight back against white pretty easily. All right, there is another Hopeless Nightmare. All right, so I will make you choose which one of those tools you want to keep. I'm going to presume that my opponent keeps Wrath of the Skies. Well, shit, I'm wrong. All right, there is a Scalding Tarn. What does this do if I sack this? Scry 2. Not currently interested. I guess let's not have my opponent be able to brainstorm that away. I started preemptively paying for the Spell Pierce that I know is coming. 1 and 2. So this is just 2 points of damage to my opponent. I don't think I Wasteland here, because Hardcast Force of Will is something that is on my radar. I might consider scrying 2 next turn. I don't need 2 copies of Hopeless Nightmare in play. I do need 1 copy in play to have something that I can copy with Estrid's Invocation. Maybe I scry at the end of my opponent's turn and I see if I hit a land drop this turn, excuse me. Barrogoyf. What card you got over there? Snapcaster Mage. That doesn't look like a particularly good Snapcaster Mage, right? Looks like opponent was trying to hold up Spell Pierce, which is not going to counter Barrogoyf. Snapcaster Mage can buy 1 turn, though. An opponent now has a wizard in play for if they spike Flame of Honor. Down to 11 to Surveil. No to Mystic Sanctuary. Going for Ponder over Flame of Honor. Valuing maximum number of looks at something that takes out Barrogoyf. That's totally reasonable. At this stage, I would like to knock my opponent off of this Tundra. I wasn't thinking about Mystic Sanctuary in terms of taking it out. So that was a shuffle. All right. Last set of looks for something to answer Barrogoyf, or at minimum I gain 5 life. Get 4. Getting Brainstorm. That is not going to do it right now, because they can't get land and ability to cast something with 1 card in hand. Alright, they did get land. I have hit land. In with Goyf, and there is the chump block. With my opponent on 0 cards, I'm going to hold up Force of Will. Like, as much as I want to wasteland my opponent off of that Tundra, they're about to pick up basic planes here, so I am not actually knocking my opponent off of white at all. Snapcaster Mage not getting saucy. I'm not going to tap out of this Force of Will to do something like Scry 2 here. I'm just perfectly fine wasting 5 mana to attempt to get in with Goyf. Alright, cool. Ooh, no blocks. Alright, excellent. Mill 5. On average, I don't return a creature there, because a bunch of my creatures are actually enchantments. There's another land drop from my opponent, probably not what they are looking for. They can't take another hit. Yeah, GG. Sarcomancy deck doing numbers, baby. Alright, we've got a really solid opening hand here. I can play Stormchaser's Talent on turn 1, and then Hopeless Nightmare and Sarcomancy on turn... Fuck you! I'm sorry. Get this shit out of my format, Watsy. I am here trying to play Legacy, and this deck, with its great understanding of the rules of Magic the Gathering, shits on anything cool. Just absolutely anything cool and fun gets the giant middle finger from this deck. Fuck off. Please manage your format. I beg you. Alright. Force a Negation in. Douthie Voidwalker in. Consign to Memory works sometimes. Tormods and Surgical, I guess, have text. It's so unrealistic for me to win this matchup, I think. Nowhere to runs are going to go. Estrid's Invocation is just really slow here. I think I cut that. Chakra Meditation similarly is slow. Got some number of Boomerang Basics and Momentum Breakers. I think I have to keep a couple of these to respect pivot plans. And in case it's not clear, my ire here is not at the player who has chosen to register a good deck. It is at Wizards of the Coast for just, like, looking at this and saying, this is fine, repeatedly. This has no realistic interaction here. I think I need to mulligan this one. Hopefully this is good enough. I keep a handful of lands. Probably get rid of this card and hope that a couple of Thought Seizes gets me there. Opponent going to 5. I will fetch and play Thought Seize after my opponent double mulligans. Alright, cool. I will take the 1 card in their hand that currently does anything. And they have 4 mana on turn 1, so if they top deck a payoff card, I will die anyway. Did they top deck a payoff card? Yeah. Nope. Nope is the answer. I mean, that's legitimately helpful. So I think I make you discard a card of your choice. There's Lotus Petal. Then I will fetch another Underground Sea. I think I do still need to Thought Seize here. Take one of the Spirit Guides, leaving my opponent with 1. And then I think I do a Draw Step Surgical on Undercity Informer. I'm just going to make sure I clicked the correct card. It jumped around a little bit there. All right. Bam, 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 bam. Charbelcher Pivot. All right. So I need to now find something that kills my opponent. That will do. I will play a Sarcomancy. Get rid of this stop, I think. And I don't need that draw step stop. Oh, Wasteland is great, because my opponent can just slam a Spirit Guide to block this token if we just kind of sit there and stare at each other for a while. All right. My opponent concedes. I don't think they should concede there. I think they are still favored to win that game, but they are probably trying to optimize their time and play leagues as quickly as possible rather than play interactive Magic, because that's not what you want to do when you register that deck. All right, I now confirm that they have Charbelcher, but there's not too much I can do in terms of adjusting to that. This is an incredible hand if I get a turn. I'm going to hope that I get a turn. And if I don't, I don't. But this is Thoughtseize and Daze on turn 1 with 2 more pieces of interaction after that. I think I just hope that their own failure rate means that they don't attempt a turn 1 win. Lotus Petal. Tapped land. All right. Got lucky. Underground Sea. Thoughtseize you. Yeah, opponent had 3 mana on turn 1. 1 more mana. And they just had it. All right, I will take Spy. Opponent passes the turn back. And I think I'm fine doing a bit of a split here. I think I will put one of these in play and play Hopeless Nightmare. Make my opponent discard potentially half a mana source. All right, opponent just passes back. Now I will go ahead and do Hopeless Nightmare. Make you discard a card. There goes a Pact of Negation. I think I will do this again. I think I feel safe doing that with Daze here. All right, and my opponent leaves. All right, we won. Wasn't that fun? Wasn't that enjoyable? Wasn't that something that we want to be a part of the core Legacy experience, with it being like the 2nd or 3rd most played deck? No? No, okay. Let your representatives at WotC know. GG's. All right. Opening hand is very strange. I think I'm going to keep it for science. It's possible this hand does a hot load of nothing. If my opponent is playing a creature-based deck, there is a very good chance that Momentum Breaker ends up being incredibly good, recycling it with Boomerang Basics and Estrid's Invocation. And I think to make sure that I slow my opponent down, I'm comfortable Force of Willing a Guide of Souls here. I have a clear turn 2, turn 3 plan. I just need to make sure that that happens. And Guide of Souls, Ocelot Pride coming together immediately would be very, very bad news for me. Oh, great. No more land here. I will eat my opponent alive then. Island. So, another Momentum Breaker as well. Goodbye, cat. Now, this does mean that my opponent has 5 or 6, absolute banger cards in their hand that they can eventually deploy. Ooh, but not right now. This is discard a card, right? Yeah, each opponent who can't discards a card. We are fine to get Estrid's Invocation going then. I think I have exactly 2 basic lands. I do. Who's up breaking their momentum? I'm one of the youths. I'm hip. Hexing Squelcher. Understood. This isn't literal GG or anything. Because things like Amped Raptor exist that can give my opponent a decent amount of value. But this is pretty darn cool. This is 1 card worth of value guaranteed every turn. I watch your videos all the time. Well, I'm sorry. You're now on the wrong end of the bullshit. You're in one. I'm doing crimes. Otter. I think I'm fine with Boomerang Basics here. We're very new to Legacy, so please be kind of nice. Well, I have Force of Will now, so we're absolutely being mean. So as far as constructive things go, I don't know exactly what your 7-card hand looked like. It's possible if your opening hand had a single land and a bunch of expensive stuff in 3 different colors that keeping basic planes as the only land was a mistake. So food for thought for the future. Now, Momentum Breaker is really, really doing its thing. And I have... Oh, shit. Did not have gone to combat. That was just a misclick on my end. I miss about 2 points of damage for that. Yeah, that's fine. I miss no points of damage for that. Potentially miss a little bit of life, though. So, here is Storm Chaser's Talent. And then I will Hopeless Nightmare and make you discard another card. And I still keep Force of Will, Brainstorm. All right. We got speed. Bombardment hits the graveyard. Okay, so now my opponent is playing Magic the Gathering. I will Force of Will basically any play they do if it's not Hexing Squelcher. Yeah, I will just Force of Will that. I have so much value on board already. So yes, I think I'm actually going to copy Storm Chaser's Talent this turn. I can make my opponent discard a card with Momentum Breaker. Or with Thoughtseize. Do it with Thoughtseize. And then I can save this to be an Edict if I need to. Ball Therapy. I will just bash in for 2. This is fine. Opponent's got a Wasteland. That's fine. Oh, yes. I will keep making Otters. Boomerang Basics. Yes. Actually, I want to do this on Hopeless Nightmare. For mana value reasons. An opponent says, hello to YouTube. This video is going to pop off. This is sweet. I am in for 6 here. And I should have lethal next turn. Ajani is great. Ooh, they're going for immediate Cabal Therapy. Resolves. Yeah. So they opted not to transform. Which means that I can do this with Momentum Breaker here. Although I also can just win with Hopeless Nightmare. Yeah, that works too. So I've got this a few different ways here. So I can Momentum Breaker, make my opponent sacrifice this, or they bounce it back to their hand with the Ajani. And then I also just have the Prowess kill through the block as well. Yep. So they save their creature, but the lethal damage is still there. GG. Yeah. Important decision on my end, just going back to it. The Force of Will that I did on the Guide of Souls on turn 1 kept my opponent from getting Ocelot Guide of Souls so that I could get my Momentum Breaker stuff going. If I did not Force of Will that Guide of Souls, it's possible my opponent wins this game because I have a hard time making them sacrifice enough creatures to get through their buffer of cats. Okay. This is removal, right? This is removal. I probably go bam, bam, bam. I probably just play this as a lifelinking creature. I maybe don't have to. I feel like something like this is going to be about appropriate. EE's a little weird. I have a bunch of 1-drops that I care about keeping in play. But sometimes answering Ocelot Pride and Guide of Souls at the same time, or a pile of cat tokens, matters enough that the downside of EE is acceptable. Oof. Absolutely not. Absolutely not. We mulligan this one for sure. We keep this one for sure. Brainstorm? Scrubland. Into Thoughtseize. I don't know what the best card in my hand is. A lot of this depends on how much my opponent values the EE. Storm Chaser's Talent is the scariest thing in the short term, and Barrowgoyf is the scariest thing in the long term. So it's kind of short term good, long term good, medium term good. All right, the opponent has made their call. So I think I'm gonna start on 2 basics here. I will put my Storm Chaser's Talent into play, and I would prefer not to Force of Will. I will if I have to, but Storm Chaser's Talent, Boomerang Basics. Well, multi-format combo. Confirmed good. Yeah. All right. Opponent has taken my Boomerang Basics, and then has played a Wasteland. I have played around that, which is great. Cool. I think I keep this to Force of Will and Ajani, which is the current disaster case. I will just get in there for 1. I do not want my opponent to have a flipped Planeswalker that also takes my Barrowgoyf at the same time. Yes. Ball Therapy does resolve. I suspect that I am losing my Barrowgoyf here. I am. Okay, and we're just chilling. Nice. I think I'm doing nothing again. Feels weird. I don't know, maybe I play the second Storm Chaser's Talent and I don't try to get greedy. Getting Estrid's Invocation into play instead. 2 Storm Chaser's Talents, rebuying Boomerang Basics is already solid. A little worried here that my opponent ends up overwhelming me over time. They don't have access to red mana yet, which is nice, so Hexing Squelcher isn't a thing yet. Okay, that's fine. That gets to take Force of Will, but leaves me with the Estrid's Invocation, which is actually the important card in my hand. Okay, the Wasteland is not allowing my opponent to play Magic the Gathering cards, unfortunately for them. This would be a really big turn for me to hit a land. I did not. I think I'll just put this in play. It's worth a couple of points of damage and my opponent discarding a card. And Estrid's Invocation, in theory, can bring it back. I don't know whether or not that will happen in practice, though. As Cabal Therapy is chilling here. And again, Ajani is something that I've already talked about as being very, very good against this current board state. See if my opponent discards a red card. There's the Hexing Squelcher that I talked about. Opponent down to 11. And I get some speed. It is not Ajani. My opponent is not using mana efficiently here. Okay, cool. Land drop is great. I get to grab an Underground Sea, copy Momentum Breaker while double triggering these otters. Yeah. Take out Ocelot Pride. Game's so much harder for me if my opponent has Ajani. Opponent down to 7. And now I have this whole Estrid's Invocation Momentum Breaker thingy going. Okay. So for when you watch this video later, you don't need to Wasteland me until you see what your draw is like. You know, I can't use that tapped land for anything right now. So you can just wait to see if you can maybe deploy 2 different cards on your turn. Like a 1 white card and then a white and a colorless card. I will say yes here. I will keep making you discard cards. That seems fine to me. I will potentially be attacking into an Orcish Bowmasters here. Yeah. I am not. Very happy with that. Get some more speed. Max speed. This is 4 to level up, so I am not quite there yet. Wow, opponent must have a bunch of red cards in their hand that are just not castable. So there's the Plateau. Here's an Amped Raptor. Hit Najani. It is a Cabal Therapy. Now you get to do the coolest thing in Legacy, which is name some ridiculous card with Cabal Therapy. Brim's Barone, Midway Mobster. Acceptable name. So I will have my opponent dead to any spell here. I flicker Estrid's Invocation, Momentum Breaker away, Amped Raptor. That is a land that will not do it this turn. This can return an instant or sorcery to my hand, though. So I can set up for next turn. In we go for 2. Now I'll double fetch Underground Seas and go to 15. Then activate a Storm Chaser's Talent, returning Boomerang basics to my hand. So now I could do something like Momentum Breaker, half of an Ajani, and Boomerang Basics the other half. So I think I've cleanly got this one. We have gotten the GGs. Have fun with the rest of your league. I will. This deck is an absolute hoot, and we're playing for the trophy. That is a nice sweet spot here. So 3 of our 4 rounds have been 2-0s, and nobody remembers what happened in match 3. So this is great. GG's. All right. Trophy game. Got Thoughtseize for turn 1, which I think is better than Hopeless Nightmare on turn 1, especially considering that I have a colorless source and I can't like Boomerang Basics into Hopeless Nightmare immediately. Disaster case is probably our Underground Sea getting wastelanded. My opponent's hand does not do anything. I will take the Brazen Borrower. Now, that said, I don't necessarily think my opponent's hand was a mulligan with 2 dazes and a snuff out as early interaction that covers a lot of like Tameo type hands very, very safely. It just so happens that the unique pile of BS that I am bringing to the table is largely immune to everything that my opponent has over there. So I just kind of settle in for a longer game here, and I can just kind of play around daze, which I expect my opponent is going to discard. Oh no, I'm wrong. They discard a land. Opponent can now surveil. They need to find a threat. Like, double daze is great if they find the threat. And they did top a card, which is presumably a threat. Not a threat. Card even good? I don't even know if that card's good. Boomerang Basics on Hopeless Nightmare. Sure. I guess that's what I need to Thoughtseize. This is largely fine, though. And it was a threat. Not the one that I was expecting. So I'll draw a card here. My opponent can ping me in extra time. That's not that big of a deal. Now I will fetch. I've already got 1 Underground Sea, so I'll just get another. Then I am, I think, just fine playing one of the copies of Hopeless Nightmare here. The Snuff Out goes away. And then next turn I can play Momentum Breaker around Double Days. And then hopefully set up for like an Estrid's Invocation loop with one of these. Ponder is fine. I don't want my opponent to like stick a Murktide Regent this turn before I have Force of Will active or something like that. I will take 3. Down to 12. Sarcomancy. Sure. There is Momentum Breaker around Double Days. There goes the Bowmasters. I think I will play a Sarcomancy, and if my opponent wants to Double Days that, I will allow them to do so. Okay, it looks like that is going to happen. I don't mind that, because that means that a Murktide Regent that gets top-decked doesn't get put into play immediately. I'm totally good with that. It also means that the Sarcomancy isn't there to deal me damage afterwards, if things go wrong. So now I know that my opponent has one more guaranteed land in hand, and I can potentially end up sacrificing this for a little bit of life later on. Now things are starting to get a little more complicated about, like, do I wasteland my opponent? I think I wasteland my opponent. I think I'm going to wasteland my opponent and sacrifice Hopeless Nightmare to Scry 2, but not Thoughtseize because the life is relevant. I'll take 2 more in combat. Down to 8. I'm just going to confirm that I clicked on the right one of these. Yes, this is the Scry 2 one. Nowhere to run is fine. I think I will bottom Force of Will. Draw Nowhere to Run. I think wasteland my opponent as well. Excellent. So let's just confirm that I am going to stabilize the board here. This is just a Force of Will check. Glad that I did the Force of Will check. I will take this, kill the Orc Army token, and then I have at least 1 turn, probably statistically like 3 turns to find something that beats Murktide Regent, which is likely just to be any blue card for Force of Will. That counts. I think I try to get value. Success. Very nice. So now I could let a Murktide Regent resolve and Momentum Breaker it, and then beat it with Force of Will if my opponent fights back. Wasteland. Sure. I will make a land drop. So now my opponent can play Murktide Regent, but you'll notice they are not doing that. Now I have Hardcast Force of Will available, so my opponent should consider wastelanding me. I don't know if it's guaranteed that they should because they have their own Kaito to cast, which they will now be doing. Which they will now not be doing. Neat game of Magic, no matter how this ends up going. Patch to 12. Notably here, with 2 Dazes and 1 known card here, I'm comfortable just hardcast Force of Willing here. I will get Swamp and Island out of my deck. I don't know that it's worth playing around copy 3 or 4 of Daze in a spot where, like, things are a little dicey. I think I would like to greed and keep this other Force of Will. All right. I could use Momentum Breaker to make my opponent discard a card here. That's not crazy either. Another Kaito. Bad news. I have another Force of Will. Very lucky for me, honestly. Okay, cool. So now you discard a card. A Daze. So they drew Daze the following turn when I had another land. That is rather lucky for me. Now I will make you discard that Murktide Regent. Get out of there. So now we are top decking. And I have this one. I have the ability to do a Scry 2 before my next turn. I will go to 3. This is my last land. Scry 2. No to Wasteland. Sarcomancy is kind of horrifying. It's very easy for me to lose to that card. I think I just say no to that. Hello, Sarcomancy. All right. In play. Notably, my speed is currently 2 for Momentum Breaker purposes. No. Do not like that. Do not like that at all. I was never worried. Not one bit. 0 concerns whatsoever. What is escape and why would I care about that? So that'll go away. I get to attack for 2. But it's going to come back. And I believe that even with losing a card type or two from graveyard, it's still going to be able to do 3 points of damage. Oh no. If that's a petty theft, that should just be a Brazen Borrower. Brazen Borrower just kills me. It is Orcish Bowmasters. So that gets to ping me. I go to 2. I am not dead to this. So I will sacrifice this for 3 life. I am at 5. I'm not dead. All right. My edict effects are now significantly worse. Ooh, opponent missed escaping. Nice. That's big game. Cool. Play Storm Chaser's talent. Make a friend. 4 mana, return Boomerang basics. Return Boomerang basics. There's some awkwardness here with the Bowmasters. In for 2. Go up on speed. I think I'm just gonna take the baby step here. Of just take the Orc Army token out of play. I think I'm already dead to another Bowmasters, right? I think they remembered their escape now. They didn't do this in a way that allows them to wasteland, though, which means that I could level this up to 6. I think I'm on the wrong side of this game, but I think it's real close. Nethergoyf is a 4/5, so still large enough to be lethal. Okay, there was another wasteland anyway. It looks like my opponent is not using it, though. Well, I'm going to level this up to 6. I literally don't have another mana source in my deck for this land. I don't think I play this land. And I think I'm chilling. Yeah, there was no petty theft or anything being left open. Ooh, both are sending in. Don't block here. I will block here. If you have another Bowmaster, you have another Bowmaster. Ooh, you do not have another Bowmaster. You threw away that body, which means that I can top deck a Momentum Breaker or Estrid's Invocation. Cameo is good. All right. An instant or sorcery is a big deal. It makes an otter. I think I have already cleared that my opponent does not have another Bowmaster. So Storm Chaser's talent trigger. Ooh. Ooh. Put back 1. Put back 2. What am I doing with Chakra? Meditation. So I can do it and get Boomerang basics and then Boomerang basics like a Momentum Breaker back to hand. I think I want to cast this other Brainstorm now while I know that my opponent does not have Bowmaster. Okay, nice. This is actually very good. So go 1 and 2. Boomerang basics, Momentum Breaker. Momentum Breaker or Nowhere to Run? Do Nowhere to Run. Nowhere to Run back to hand. We have triggers. I now have a blue card in my hand for Force of Will. I now go 2 mana for Nowhere to Run. Use Nowhere to Run to kill Tamiyo, so Tamiyo can't do stupid shit. Go to Punchies. Send in for 2. Opponent to 4. I have Force of Will for if they have something nuts. That doesn't count as something nuts. I will not Force of Will that. You can look at my top card. It's a land. Opponent does not attack. They're also not wastelanding me, which means that I get to use stupid amounts of mana to do crimes with Chakra Meditation. So 1. I guess let's use these first, actually. So Chakra Meditation, trigger the Prowess, which already is probably lethal. Hot damn, deck. We did it. I think my opponent had a few opportunities to use their wastelands and make this a little bit harder for me. I understand wanting to have 5 mana to hardcast Force of Will, though. Like, that is very relevant. Whew, that was tight. GG. So I am probably not interested in Daze here. I will probably play Grim Bauble as something that kills Orcish Bowmasters, not necessarily that I expect to kill all of my opponent's stuff. Kaito seems like a problem. I am interested in this as a lifelinking endgame thing after my opponent boards out a bunch of spot removal, and I can play Grim Bauble for Bowmasters, and Dauthi Voidwalker is a thing that I could think about as our EE and Tormod's Crypt. Is this all that I am doing? Like, Dauthi is fine. I could pull a couple of Brainstorms, as it's rather bad versus Bowmasters. I could pull a couple of Sarcomancies for Dauthi Voidwalker. That would probably not be crazy. I'm expecting a slow game anyway. Plus, it gives me something that I could theoretically hit off a Barrogoyf. I have lands and spells. It could be better, honestly. I don't think it's a mulligan or anything, but I would really like another colored source so that I don't have to get Underground Sea. I could start off trying to play a like Storm Chaser's Talent Boomerang basics game off of just blue mana. And I will really have to see what happens in this first turn cycle to decide how much I like that idea. Opponent getting a basic and deploying a Nethergoyf. Sure thing. Another Sarcomancy. I think this has to be Underground Sea, unfortunately. And I know I'm not getting dazed on this right now. Okay, cool. I will, I think, take my opponent's Thoughtseize and not give them information about what is in my hand. Very interesting that my opponent had Daze in hand and opted to do basic Swamp on turn 1. Not saying it's wrong, as like I am a Wasteland deck, but I would have done an Underground Sea there. And they had 3 lands too, right? Like, you don't care if you got Wastelanded if you have that many lands. Whatever I do, I am doing around Daze here. I think I'm going to do Storm Chaser's Talent, and maybe we get the Consign to Memory out of my opponent's hand with this trigger. Here's the trigger. We do not. Last turn, and opponent might be opting to Surveil here. No, it is Bowmasters. It's pretty darn good. I will not be wastelanding my opponent here. I am taking 5 damage a turn as of right now. I can turn that into 3 damage a turn pretty easily. Hello, Brainstorm. You are right on time. This is incredibly awkward. I hate this. So my opponent can consign this trigger and turn Sarcomancy into something that deals 1 damage a turn, rather than something that blocks 2 damage a turn. We'll see if they pick up on it. I think they are replicating. Not great for me. And this is part of the reason why I boarded out 2 copies of Sarcomancy. I just happened to draw both of them, which is unfortunate. And like, I looked at the opening hand and I knew that the mana could be better here. And we're absolutely feeling that as of right now. I'm taking 7 damage in this turn cycle. I think I am dead. An Edict effect is currently not getting me out of this. What a massive play draw difference here. Like, if I take this Nethergoyf initially, it is a different game. I eat a little from Sarcomancy. So, how do I get out of this? I think the plan is Sarcomancy, so these can't attack. And then Boomerang basics the Nethergoyf to buy time to maybe set up Estrid's Invocation. I'm going to have to hit another land drop to play around the Daze. There is a Surveil and Force of Negation pitching the Daze. At this point, if I bounce Nethergoyf, I still take lethal. I am dead. We get 1 more game to try to snag the trophy here. GG. I have more things that I would like to board out in this matchup, and I just don't have the cards. I don't think it makes sense for me to be the Daze deck here. My opponent is way better at doing that. Like, board out 1 more Sarcomancy and play the very, very inefficient Engineered Explosives. How much do I believe in the deck? I don't know that I believe this much. I'm gonna mulligan this. This is fine. I can play this game on basics. So, Swamp, you discard a card. Island, Boomerang basics, rebuy this, you discard another card. I think I'm going to get rid of Chakra Meditation, or just being rather slow. We've both used a decent amount of clock. Basic Swamp. But like, when you compare the damage output of this card to a Nethergoyf, it's like very clear which one of those is going to be a better turn 1 play, right? So hopefully we can get our value over time. Opponent says no to a Force of Will. Basic Swamp. I'm going to lose my Boomerang basics here, in all likelihood. I could lose Momentum Breaker, depending on what my opponent's hand looks like, though. Boomerang basics is the value-oriented play. Yeah. Brainstorm. I'm just going to cast around Bowmasters. Brainstorm is a liability here, not a good card. So, reasonable. I think I'm putting both of these on top. And then next turn, I can play Storm Chaser's Talent and Momentum Breaker in theory. Opponent passes. So, here is Storm Chaser's Talent number 1. Ooh, understood. 3 to Surveil? Sorry, 3 to Scry. Then opponent fetches. I don't want to see Bowmaster, because that requires me to use both of these pieces of removal to get through, and it is what we see, unfortunately. I will get pinged. I can't do anything about the basics here. Opponent could sneak a Kaito in this turn, and it would be real bad for me. Okay, now they can't. I will take 2. I am at 15. Oh, hate that. All right. So I will go ahead and kill Bowmasters with my -2, -2 thingy. And this was very specifically for Bowmasters. And then I will play a Storm Chaser's talent. I am probably going to use this Otter to block to gain 4 to 5 life. I think I just need to prolong this game for a little while. And then find an Estrid's. Oh, actually, I could block the Orc Army token. Okay, opponent is not going to give me that angle. Yeah, I'm just going to block and gain 4 life. I am very much not the beatdown right now. Jet. MEO. Thoughtseize is very, very bad right now. I will play Momentum Breaker. It kills an Orc token. I think this is how my trophy crumbles. I'm not out of it yet. I can find Estrid's. Estrid's, I think, beats Tamiyo Netherglyph. I think I have to naturally draw it, though. I think I cannot take the turn off. I think I just have to use my mana in a meaningful way, or my opponent cracking clues overwhelms me. I'm at 11 already. Okay. Do I have to deal with the Planeswalker? Bobble. No, I do not. As that draw happens on my turn, luckily for me. I think Netherglyph effectively kills me in 2 swings, even if that's not literally true. Nowhere to run is a good start. So I can do that. I should have done that on my opponent's turn. This has flash. I'm just not used to that being the case. It's like my opponent could have drawn a Brainstorm. All right. That's a land. That does mean Hardcast Force of Will is live. I take 5. That is a Polluted Delta. That is not a live card, as I'm going to take 5. I could gain 1 life. I think this card needs to be in play. I think I will make this land drop in case at some point I can sacrifice this. And I think this becomes the Desperation Scry 2 turn. Could be Desperation Surveil 2 instead. I'm at 1. I am dead to Bowmasters at any point this game. I cannot pitch cast Force of Will. I am also probably dead to that Wasteland activating. I think I'm going to leave this in play. Go for Surveil 2. Hopeless Nightmare is not going to do it. Underground Sea is not going to do it. I believe that if my opponent Wastelands this, I'm dead to so many more things. Ah! So I can't do this meaningfully. I can gain 1 life. That is not going to do it. So very close to the trophy. Crushing. But I am still incredibly happy with this league. GG's. Let's go ahead and wrap this one up. Overall thoughts on the deck list. Pretty darn good for what it is. Your average card is a lot worse than the average card in something like the Demir Tempo deck that we faced in the last round. The upside of playing something like this, though, is that Estrid's Invocation is absolutely dominant once it gets going. If I was going to play this again, I would probably put the 4th Estrid's Invocation into the deck where Chakra Meditation is. Like, I understand conceptually why this is here, because it just does such disgusting things with Force of Will, and to a lesser extent, Boomerang basics. But I think getting an Estrid's Invocation going just also means that you win. So I think I would rather have the incredibly consistent Estrid's Invocation over Chakra Meditation, or at the very least play the last Estrid's Invocation in the board. Sarcomancy feels like a bit of a liability. If there is another enchantment that creates a creature that does not have the downside of dealing damage to you, I would be down to explore that. I'm not sure what that is without doing some research first. You definitely do need another thing that deals damage to win. I don't think Storm Chaser's talent on its own is enough. I could see the Barrowglyph in the sideboard being replaceable. Normally this is a card that I love, but it's just so hard for you to hit anything here that you're just playing this as a large lifelinking body, which admittedly may be enough in some cases, but this is about as weak of a Barrowglyph as you could possibly imagine. There are 0 creatures in the main deck. And even if you board in all 4 of your creatures, that's a maximum of 3 hits off of the Barrowglyph, and you won't always board in all of those. I also feel like EE is a little sketchy. Maybe we can do better than EE. in our deck that has a ton of 1-drop permanents that it wants to keep around, EE is perhaps not at its best. Maybe you could do... There are things you could do that could be like very, very good versus Urza Saga tokens in particular, but your flash enchantment perhaps does not save you from the pile of cat tokens. All right, thumbs up this deck. I am glad that I played this one. This was a lot of fun. That was a great afternoon. I'm going to go edit this video, and today my video went live where I announced that I'm going full-time content creator, so now I can start making some changes to my website and such to reflect that. So I've got some work to do. Have a great rest of the day, folks. See ya.